All right, so we do have a question on YouTube. All right, the question is, what are some things you don't like about a home being part of an HOA? The main problem with an HOA, well, there's a couple problems, a couple things I dislike. First of all, with the HOA, you are agreeing to pool your money together to take care of the common area. You're not only pooling your money together, you're also saying that you and everyone else in the HOA owns this piece of land. So that means that if there's a lawsuit, you open yourself up to lawsuits because the HOA is going to most likely get sued by one of the members in the future. That lawsuit, whether it's successfully litigated or defended or not, that's going to cost you some money in the future. So I dislike that. I also dislike the control that some of the HOAs have or do not administer. So we've seen some HOAs that are well run. Like we live in Kingstown, which is one of the larger planned communities in Northern Virginia, and because we live in Kingstown, this HOA is, I would say, ran very well.
Mm-hmm.
But we have heard of large HOAs that are not ran that well. The larger HOAs give you access to things that you really can't find in smaller communities. Like we have 2 pools, 2 gyms, we have walking trails, we have tennis courts. We have things that you really couldn't even offset by even going to like a country, like a gym.
Yeah, if you would have to go to a rec center to get the same type of amenities
Right.
that are just included in our neighborhood. So what I would say I dislike about HOAs, because I actually really like HOAs, but there is something I dislike about them. And what I dislike about them is going to be just the tedium, like the control in really minor details when it comes to exterior maintenance. We had a client once who replaced the lamp post, but they didn't like the lamp post. It was such a minor thing, but they didn't have an application on file for the lamp post. The lamp post was fine. It's not that the lamp post was incorrect. It wasn't that. It was just that the client had failed to put an application in to change the lamp post. So it's the little things like that. And we always get those little things, like someone changed the light fixture out in front of their house. It's usually small things like that. That's what gets me. We have a client now who they want them to change the color of the stain,
Of the deck.
of the
Yes.
deck.
Yes.
And so just those little things like that can just be like a hassle to deal with. Like you think you want to have your deck stained, so you call the handyman over, you have him stain the deck, and then you find out that you should have gone through this application process where you submit an application and they let you know, hey, you can use the sienna brown. Now, what I do like, some HOAs do a really good job of having approved colors already set up, so you can just go on their website and see what the approved colors are.
Another thing I dislike about HOAs is the fact that you really don't own your property. So there is this misconception that, you pay off your mortgage and now you own your property. That's not true. The person who really owns your property is the local government, because you pay taxes to them. So that means that is a mortgage payment that you never get rid of. The other mortgage payment you never get rid of in an HOA is the HOA fees. If you miss a certain number of HOA fees, they could foreclose on your property. Anyone who could foreclose on your property, I view as a percentage of ownership. It's just that most people look at it as, oh, I'm just concerned about the bank. That's not the case. The HOA also has a indirect percentage of ownership that you just have to constantly be aware of. Those fees can increase if the HOA is poorly managed. Okay, so I'll give you another thing I dislike about HOAs. It's not necessarily tied to the HOA, but it's tied to how HOAs are managed, or at least how buyers perceive them. Sometimes we'll have buyer clients who say, I want to buy a condo. Condo fees and HOA fees are similar. So they'll say, I want to buy a condo, I want to go into HOA, but I want the HOA fees to be low. Low HOA fees, what does that mean? The HOA fees are designed to pool together capital to provide routine maintenance and to have some level of cushion in the event that a once in every 10-year event occurs. If your HOA fees or your condo fees are too low or so low that you don't have like a reserve account, then all you're saying is that when
kicking a can down the road.
Yeah, you're kicking a can down the road, and there will be a special assessment in the future. And those special assessments, you can't begin to imagine the liabilities that a large organization just has because of its exposure. So that's another reason why I dislike HOAs.
And also with inflation, because again, Abraham said, you're putting money into the reserves, you're talking about how much money it costs to upkeep the area. So as prices increase for things, for services, then guess what's going to happen? your HOA fees are going to increase. And HOA fees go up pretty much every year. It's, a few dollars here, a few dollars there. If you look at a listing, a home that's on the market now, it has a $115 HOA fee. 5 years ago, that HOA fee was $100.
Right.
And so it's just a few dollars here and there, but over time it does add up.
And you should want it to add up.
Yes, you do
You
want it
should
to add
want
up.
it to add up. One of the reasons why we see so many HOAs in Northern Virginia, or really just in most suburban places, is the HOA actually is making a deal with the county, the local government, that they are going to take on some of the responsibility, which now entices the local government to allow that developer to make that development. Because here's the thing that most people don't consider or haven't considered: suburban neighborhoods actually lose money for most local governments, because a suburban neighborhood, the builder lays the first road, right? So the builder lays the road, they lay the plumbing, they lay all of the major infrastructure. Once the development is sold, now that infrastructure has moved on to the local government.
Unless you have a HOA.
Exactly. And so these HOAs, while I know that a lot of people dislike the fee, they dislike the control, this is a quote unquote a win-win scenario for the local government and for the community to have the amenities they have, the type of houses they have as well. One thing you want to consider is that with an HOA, you also know what the agreement that everyone else has agreed to, right? In a neighborhood where there is no HOA, there is no protection for your home value, for your neighbor doing something ostentatious or
that could drive down the value of your home. So I love HOAs, and the reason I like them and why I will probably choose to live in them is because of the fact that when you do not have that sense of order, then there's nothing protecting your property value. Because when a buyer is looking at a home, they are buying a neighborhood. So when you're part of a HOA, there's this cohesiveness to the homes, to the area. And it also keeps us from doing some out of line things that we might be inclined to do. Everyone knows on our block that your grass has to be cut. Everyone knows that you can't park commercial vehicles in your driveway. Everyone knows that you can't have a bunch of cars parked in front of your house, and that your home has to be pressure washed however many times a year to make sure that it stays clean. And this is for the benefit of the entire community. And so if you were to have a home that was in disrepair and one of the neighbors wanted to sell their home, well, that neighbor next door with the overrun yard, that could affect your resale value.
Which is really all an HOA is really designed to do. The HOA is really designed to protect your property value, which most people care more about their equity position than their ability to put pink flamingos in their front yard. I would also say, I know that people like small government, but there are some benefits to pooling capital together to handle a big project, right? So again, we live in Kingstown. We like living in Kingstown. Actually, we may move to Delray in the future when we get older, but outside of that area, I like structured environments, and I don't like managing people. So the HOA allows me to have a level of management that I don't even have to be involved
We don't have to
in.
think about it. Now, we haven't had snow this year, but when there is snow, we don't even think about it. We're like, oh yeah, like the HOA is going to take care of that. All we have to do is dig our car out, and we have friends, or we know people who don't live in HOAs, and they're like, I'm home for a few days. Why are you home for a few days? Because the ice is on the road.
Yes. I would also say that in an HOA, you have this. So Northern Virginia is I would say it's almost soulless because it's just a giant suburb. An HOA gives you this community feel that it's almost like paying into a membership, really, to be honest with you. And it gives you that sense of pride that, like, I live here, we live here, we're together, type of thing. So I agree. HOAs have their negative sides to them. I think that the benefits of the HOA, especially because in Northern Virginia, you're paying so much money for a home. You don't want that investment tinkered with just because your neighbor has a different perspective of how they should dry their clothing outside,
right?
like how they or whether or not urban farming, right? Or if they should have like a chickens and stuff in their backyards. It's, hey, don't get me wrong, you could be free, just go further out to the west, right? So yeah, that's my opinion of HOAs.